We were assigned to figure out what does Frodo need to do to be ready to retire in 40 years. What does Frodo need to do to be ready to retire in 40 years? So as a group, we discussed many different things that would be needed, and the major thing that we discovered was that he would probably need to save up some money. The picture kind of helped us out too here, by the way. So we asked the question, what would Frodo need to do to be ready to retire in 40 years? So let's start to think about the pieces there. Well, first of all, what would the interest rate be in the future? Well, hard to predict interest rates in the future, so we made that our first goal, is what interest rate could we expect? And since we weren't sure, we did some research online to try to figure out what were the average annual savings rates over the past 50 years. We thought this year might not be a good indicator, but over time, 50 years might give us a good average. So, as we started to do that research, we found a website that allowed us to be able to figure out the interest rates on savings accounts since 1960. And as you can see, there's a whole list of them here. So we took these numbers, put them into Excel, and then calculated an average savings rate over the last 50 years. And after doing so, we discovered that the average annual interest rate per year ended up being 5.8%. So we decided to take that as our standard savings rate. Then we thought, what should come up next? Well, tried to think about what do we need in order to be able to retire? How much money do we actually spend? And again, we didn't really have any idea. People are different, so we looked towards an average. And to do that, we looked up the average household budget in the United States. And according to this data that was found in 2013, the average amount a household needed was $63,784. So for simplicity's sake, we took 64,000 as our data point. So back to here, how much money or spending per year? We set this up as 64,000. Then as we were discussing in the group, we thought, well, that's only for 1 year. So hopefully we're not only going to be retiring for 1 year, we're hopefully going to be retiring for a long time. And we decided to think about it from the perspective of, well, wouldn't we love to have an account from which the interest amounted to 64,000? So that way that nest egg amount would essentially exist forever, and every year we just take out the interest and let that be 64,000. Is that a reasonable goal? Is that even possible? So with the 5.8 interest rate and the 64,000, we decided to assign a variable and turn this into an algebra problem. Let x equal the amount of money in the account. And if we do so, consider the equation that says 0.058, 5.8% of x needs to be equal to the 64,000 amount, which was the amount per year, the amount that we would spend on average per year. Of course, with this algebra, we would divide by the number 0.058. And after doing so, we used our calculator, of course, on this one, and we ended up getting a pretty large number. Let me see if I can find that for you. $1,103,448.28. So this would be a decimal there. So over $1 million is how much we have to save up. As a future direction, we also wanted to try to consider possibly what happens as we compensate for inflation. But at this stage, we just decided to go with this. Now, savings plans end up being a very much harder equation to try to find, so we tried to find software that would allow us to be able to calculate this online too, and we were lucky enough to find this thing from bankrate.com. It just simply asked us how much do we want to save, and of course we knew that the amount we wanted to save was 1,103,000. Whoops, it didn't stick. 1,103,448.28 cents. Okay. How many years do we have to save it? Remember, our problem said it was going to be 40, so we put 40 there. What interest rate do we expect? We went with the 5.8% that we calculated from the average over the last 50 years. We elected to take monthly compounding because that's the standard in most banks that we researched. And through trial and error, we found out that you have to put some money as an initial deposit and wouldn't accept 0. So we left it at essentially a very small amount. We put 1 as our test value. Do we want to skip savings? We said no, we'll just pretend that we save whenever, like at the end of every month as we need. And we had our due date, and then we calculated. And after calculation, you can see that, it slid down here a little bit, the amount that we would need to save per month was $584.86. So, for him to reach his plan, we said $584, I forgot my number already, 58486, we said that 584.86 would be an ideal amount of money per month for Frodo to save starting now if he wished to retire within 40 years and have an account that would yield him $64,000 a year in perpetuity.